Well, today in Digital Humanities, we had two really great sessions, the first of which concerned a software program that during my undergraduate career I really learned to detest due to really boring classes. That is, of course, is PowerPoint. Dr. Hicks walked us through a lot of really good ideas as far as ways to make PowerPoint more engaging, and starting us off with an activity to ask, really, when is PowerPoint well used, when is it not well used? And definitely reflecting on that in class, my original thought that in my experience, it's been poorly used more often than not. I did think a little bit about some classes where it had been used well. One of those that really came to mind was World Regions, but I think that had more to do with teaching style, and whatever was behind the professor to support his lecture would have been a good thing. Incorporating current material, incorporating interesting stuff that has to do very closely with what's going on in class, as opposed to just pulling in random articles from outside. So really, in that class, I can't credit PowerPoint so much as I can credit just good teaching. In my experience thus far in the schools, I really have not seen PowerPoint being used a lot. My cooperating teacher has an active board, and he uses that with ready-made notes, or as Charlie would put it, teacher in a box. And he elaborates a lot on it and incorporates a lot of movies and multimedia into the class, and does a lot of group discussions and note-taking, and really gets the kids engaged. And there was one class that I taught a couple of weeks ago where I used PowerPoint, and I don't think the kids had really seen it be used much. Of course, I'm sure that will change as they get throughout the rest of their schooling career, and they'll probably learn to have such strong feelings about PowerPoint as I do. When I used it, I did a lot of the stuff that we were suggested to do through our various readings, which was to use PowerPoint as one means of teaching, but not in replacement of teaching. It really helped me to see the Microsoft book and see some ways that it was really broken down in a very succinct way, and outlining. I think far too often teachers make a PowerPoint before thinking about why or what they're teaching, or even worse, they just throw random concepts together, either from the textbook or from the SOL framework, and they really don't accomplish much. All they've done is take the transparency and the old overhead projector, put it into a regular LCD projector that many of the classrooms have today, and use a computer instead to do the same task. Of course, it's easier to edit, but really doesn't accomplish a whole lot for the kids. I did find it very interesting comparing and contrasting the various readings, and the ones that were talking about how PowerPoint is evil being in direct contradiction, but making the exact same points as the Microsoft book that was talking about going beyond bullet points to use PowerPoint for more than it really gets used for. Microsoft really wanted us to get past the bullet points. It would make a lot of sense to me to change some of the default templates so that every presentation in every subject in every company, every school, everywhere doesn't look the same, unless somebody goes to an extraordinary effort to make it not look the same. Our activity was pretty good. We incorporated a Wordle and to contrast the various viewpoints of the articles, but really more to stimulate class discussion. To me, the most important thing about teaching is the students and getting the students involved, and more often than not, PowerPoint hasn't done that. I think that every teacher is going to have to use PowerPoint because, like the article said, it's a very efficient, effective way of conveying points. And as long as we have an educational system that values teaching points, tools like PowerPoint have their place. And unfortunately, that monotonous teaching probably will still have its place. There are some ideas from this, like the first 5 slides drawing people in, that I think are really relevant to good presentations. and are things that I hadn't necessarily thought of before. Um, Not a whole lot of this was unfamiliar to me, but it still brought in a lot of really good ideas. But I think that it's up to the teacher to make them work in their classroom with their students.